The probably a more ideal way for you to consider to handle this would be to have invoices created, have the estimates for the repairs done in invoices, and you're going to do an amendment that would say at closing from seller's proceeds, seller to pay blank, and that would be the name of the vendor, X amount of dollars, and that's it. And you're going to want to be able to provide those invoices. So at closing from seller's proceeds, seller to pay blank vendor X amount of dollars. You're going to the reason that this is perhaps a better way to handle this is, number one, it does not affect a buyer's loan because it is not the seller making any kind of a contribution to the buyer. What happens in that situation, you're going to want to make sure, again, to get that amendment to the closing attorney so that it can go on the HUD statement as well as copies of those invoices. Then what happens at closing, the closing attorney will write a check to the vendor or vendors, it could be more than one, for that dollar amount. Hand that check physically to the buyer. Then, after you close, the buyer then contacts that vendor and has the payment from the closing attorney's account, so you don't have to worry about a seller perhaps stopping payment on that check or something happening. It's from the closing attorney's bank account, and then the buyer is in charge of scheduling. The buyer can add on something additionally, but that payment is from the seller's proceeds, but the check is actually cut from the closing attorney and physically handed to the buyer to then pay that vendor when they schedule the work. Had an issue that just came up yesterday.